before the beginning of my presentation, I just want to say sorry because I didn't have the time to write my text, so it will be a freehand for me. So I hope it will be easy to understand. I will do my best for that, and I will try to speak not so quick than this first sentence. So again, hello, and today I will present you my work that I entitled Between the Shore and the Open Sea, Diversity, Trends and Adaptation of Fishing Practice in the Middle Holocene, 7th to 3rd millennia in Eastern Arabia, mainly in Sultanate of Oman, and I will present you as an archaeological synthesis. So, as I say to you, I am an ichthyoarchaeologist, which is a part of a more larger discipline, scientific field, which is zooarchaeology. And indeed, it's very interesting to focus and to give an interest to the animal remains that we can find on the archaeological site, because, as you probably know, there is no human society without animal. They can be small, they can be big, they can be wild and domesticated. And when we are studying the relationship between the human and the animal across the time and the space, you can speak about several thematics, like obviously the question of the alimentation, the question of the exploitation and the management of environment, some question about the commensalism, the domestication, the case of transport animal, the artisanal practice, and of course the paleo-environment thematics. So, for example, sometimes animal could have several function and several use. For example, I give you the example of the camel, and you can see that it can be used for several use as for the subsistence strategy, and you can use the product of the camel, like the meat, the milk, the fat, but also this product can be transformed into several sub-products, byproducts. So, for example, fresh and salt mix, etc., etc. And for the camel, it could be also used as a cavalry, or in the case of transport, and also in the crafting by reusing the bones, and of course the wool and the skins. So zooarchaeology is a scientific field which uses several other disciplines. For example, you can use anatomy, taphonomy, symbolism, traceology, technology, and when you are combining all these scientific tools, this scientific point of view, this discipline, you can divide the question that you are going to answer in two big categories. So, for example, two big categories, but the one which is connected to the biodiversity problematic, indeed, the animal can be evidence from the nature, and so it gives you the environmental archaeology, and it can also help you to answer to some anthropological problematic by giving you some evidence of some history of techniques, mentality, and as evidence of some evolution and diversity of cultural, of the different kind of cultures that exist across the time and space. So, of course, when you are the archaeologist, the work begins on the field. And I will do take several minutes to speak about the methodology, because it's always important to remind to everybody several big and very important point. So, for example, for the zooarchaeology, when you are interested with the animal problematics, it's really, really, really important to do the sieving on the field. It's the same case for most of the, and I guess every bioarchaeological discipline like the botany, but it is also the case for the bones, and you cannot be okay with just the unpicking. You need to to do some sieving, and especially for the fish, because as we are going to see, some fish could be very, very tiny and have very tiny and small, small bones. So it's interesting to proceed with the sieving. After the sieving, you have to go to the laboratory to do the second part of the work, and most of the time, sorting is the first of the activities that you are going to proceed on the lab. Because of course that could be a lot of remains, animal remains during in your sediment, especially in the marine context, coastal context, where you can find several kind of aquatic animals like the fish, the seashells, the crabs, the birds, the marine mammal, etc., etc. So you need to do the sorting, and after that you are going to do your analyze with your identification, the counting, the weighting of the remain, and then the analyze of data. And of course, when you are analyze your data and when you identify your bones, sorry, you are going to proceed with some comparative anatomy. And that's why it's very essential to know the associate fauna of the studies of the areas that you are studying. And that's why the collection and the constitution of a collection is so important, because the aquatic biodiversity could be very important, and some place could host a very large biodiversity, and so it's important to have a very good representation of the aquatic fauna, aquatic fish that you can find on your area. So once again, I just want to take 1 minute to talk about the constitution of the collection, because it's not just a question of going on the market and just buying some fish and knowing and that's it, cooking and put it on a pot. You need to do this thing properly. So for example, you are going to collect the fish from local fisher or local fish market, and that in this way you are going to speak with a lot of fisher and ask to them about how they fish the fish that you are going to buy. So you are going to learn a lot of things about the environment exploited and also the technique used for capturing that fish. After that, one of the most important parts of the constitution of a collection is the identification part. You have to take a lot of time to correctly identify your species. So that means that you have to know the correct bibliography and literature about the areas that you are studying and the species that you are going to identify. So it could be a longer work. Especially if you are working on the freshwater, for example, because you have to count many characteristics on the fish, like the number of the spine, the number of scales, describe the different tooth. So yeah, there is a lot of different features to reach the correct identification of each species, so it took time. And so when you get your identification, you take the measurement and the photography of your fish. After that, you prepare the skeleton. By this part, you have the best friend of the cat of all the neighbors, for obviously. And you are putting all your, you are cooking the fish for removing all the flesh. And after that, you're putting your skeleton to maceration time into some pot. So of course, you're not you do not forget to add some identification tap inside. And you let it to rot for several weeks or several months. It depends on what kind of environment you are for preparing your fish. For example, in some humid and very hot place, it's going to be very quick. In France, when it's winter, it's going to be much longer. And so after that, you are cleaning, drying your fish and your skeleton, and you're putting it on the box. On a box, voilà, one box for one species, and you put it the correct identification and biometric information on the fish, so you can use it for the identification and for the future measurement works that you are going to do. So now that I talked about the method, let's go into the subject about the fishing in the Sultanate of Oman. And as you can see, I don't know if you are going to see my mouse, so the Sultanate of Oman is here, and as you see, the Sultanate of Oman is surrounded by sea, and its water are hosted a lot of biodiversity. As you can see, in the Sultanate of Oman, almost more than 1,000 species are identified, and that is more important than in the Persian Gulf or in the Red Sea. So it's a very important place for the biodiversity of marine resources, and indeed Sultanate of Oman is at the cross of three several kind of sea. So you can find the Gulf of Oman, the Arabian Sea here, and the Indian Ocean. And also obviously there is could be some exchange with the Persian Gulf sometime by the Hormuz Détroit. And also, so the biodiversity is very rich, but also the Sultanate of Oman is provided many kilometers of coast. For example, in Oman, I think that more than 3,000 kilometers of coast are recorded. So it gives a lot of opportunity to go to the fishing in the sea. And so it's surrounded by the sea, but at the first glance, the Sultanate of Oman can appear like as a desolate or a very arid land at the first glance, but it's full of contrast. For example, so as I said, you have some hostile and arid environment like the desert, the Rocky Mountain, but the human community gets their settlement along the wadi, in the foothill, and in this place they could develop with time some agriculture some oasis agriculture by using the local aquifer. And of course, as I present you with the map, there is a great occupation of the coastline, and the marine resources are very important and indispensable for human population. According to the ethnographic report that we get from the beginning of the 20th century, the Bedouin tribe were alternated between the coast and the interior by alternated with two different kinds of activity, the fishing and the oasis agriculture and breeding. Of course, not that, but yeah. By this time, at the beginning of the 20th century, the fishing practice was very small scale, at the small scale level, which means it's very traditional, and with no boat, no motorized boat and stuff like that. And the change I have by studying this area of the world is that nowadays more than 90% of the halieutic activities that took place in Oman nowadays are still considered as artisanal or traditional fishing by the government, which means that there is a little part of the landing from the fishing which are get from the industrial boat. Most of them are practiced from a tiny boat, which are now motorized, of course, but still it's small boats, as you can see on the picture. And there is also bigger boats, but still traditional. So it's very interesting because we are working with population which are very attached to the sea and know a lot of things about the sea, and they have a very big knowledge about the coastal environment, the different kind of fish, the seasonality, etc., which is fascinating because you can learn a lot of things when you are talking with these people. So if nowadays the sea is important for the population, it was already the case by the past, especially in the prehistory, where we can find more developed aquatic environment along the coast. Indeed, the environment, the climate was much more humid, and the sea level was higher, which caused the development of numerous lagoons and mangrove along the coast, as you can see on the map on the left, which presents the reconstitution of the different kind of lagoon for the tiny part, just a tiny part of Oman, which is the al-Sharqiya area, a governorate. And nowadays, these lagoons are paleo lagoons. They are gone, but we still can find their trace. I mean, they still can be observed in the paysage, in the landscape, and what is very important is that nowadays we can still observe, when you identify a paleo lagoon, we identify shell middens, many shell middens located all around this paleo lagoon. And once again, you can see that by all the black spots, the tiny black spots that are presented in the map. All of that are archaeological sites, and you can see that most of them are located just at the surrounded of the paleo lagoon. It's very interesting because paleo lagoon and mangrove are very good place for hosting some great biodiversity. Indeed, the mangrove can act as a nursery for the fish because it's very shallow water, and the roots of the tree, of the mangrove tree, can offer some hiding place for the tiny species, especially for the fish. So as you can see on the second picture of the slide, that in the bottom of the picture, you can see some tiny fish. And yeah, of course, there is a tiny shark which is hunting, but also you can see some tiny fish in the stuff. And so you can find very specific taxa in this water. It could be brackish, it could be most of the species have taxa which can support the brackish water. And so you can find a lot of fish, but also some birds, some crabs, some muddy shells, sometimes very specific. As you can see on the third picture, this is oyster, and specific oyster from the mangrove. In Oman, it's Sacostrea cuculata, and you can find it also on the rocky, on some rocky parts. But in mangrove, you can find this species stick to the wood of the mangrove. Because of all this aquatic feature present during the prehistoric time and the Holocene and the beginning of the Holocene, Eastern Arabia area take another path in the cultural development compared to other areas of the Peninsula Arabia, of the Arabian Peninsula, such as the nearest, for example. And indeed, as you can see in this graphic, the early Holocene took place in a very humid place, which conducted, as I said, to the mangrove development. And progressively, this mangrove was the climate redefined, and so the mangrove collapse and collapse. But during the Neolithic, we can find on the Neolithic some culture which could be defined in different way. For example, we can find only the premise of the breeding activity. We can find a very uniform material culture with no ceramics, and a marine activity and crafting, which was done on mostly in a great, maybe not mostly, but in a great part on marine animal, like on the seashell. For example, as you can see, you have two examples of tools which was made on different kind of seashell. And of course, and not of course, but what is one of the greatest characteristic of the Neolithic in this area is the numerous presence of the shell middens during along the coast side. And for the Aphic period, which is the beginning of the Bronze Age, you can have you will have the apparition of the metallurgy, the first evidence of the agriculture of oasis, and of course a change in the kind of structure that we can find, since the aphid period is really characterized by the presence of numerous monumental architecture, especially with the presence of this big tombs, this big collective tomb. Voilà. So when I start my research 10 years ago, very few study was done on the material, the aquatic and marine material, and especially for the fish bones. A PhD was already done on the Persian Gulf, which with the one of the Mark Beach, who published his PhD in 2004. And for Oman, Margaret Workman was already published the several sites, and especially the one of Ras al-Hamra 5 during the same time in the beginning of the 2000 years. But that's it. It was very few study. So it was very few study, but the fish bones was noticed on all the archaeological sites from the coast, and so everybody, all the archaeologists know that the fish bone was of great interest for understanding the coastal society in the coastal society from the beginning of the Holocene in Eastern Arabia. So when I started my PhD, my research 10 years ago, three big questions was reached to my interest. So the first one was how to characterize the fishing practice. What kind of fish does this population eat, in which quantity, what kind of environment was exploited. It was open sea, does it was the reef, the mangrove, etc. And the third one was about the seasonality of occupation of this site. So for this presentation, I will present the work that I already done during my master, my PhD, and my postdoc, and the work I continue to done actually. So as you can see, it's quite large chronology from the Neolithic, Middle Neolithic to the First Bronze Age period, the Aphid period, and it covers also kind of a large area. I will focus my attention on this one for the Neolithic because this one are shell midden. And so I want to focus on this one. And also I will present mostly the result from Ras al-Hamra 6 and Ruways 1. Before going to the presentation of the result, I want to give you few words of vocabulary. Otherwise you will be completely lost. So for the ease of discussion, I divide the fish in three categories. The pelagic fish, it's jacks and trevally. It's a fish that you can evolve in all the column of water. They are predator mainly, and they can live in the open sea. And for the Neolithic case in this presentation, they mainly can be found in the coastal open sea, so near the shore, but still they are pelagic fish. The second category will be the demersal fish. So it's all the fish living in the reef, for example. So this fish can also evolve in all the column of water, but they stay very attached to the substrate here in the reef. So you can find all the breams, all the grouper, all the colored fish on the reef, the surgeonfish, triggerfish, etc., etc. And the last category I made for this my presentation of my work is a category of small pelagic / juvenile. And this category of fish are specific to the lagoon and mangrove. As I said, this specific environment are very great for hosted the tiny fish. Voilà. And when we are speaking of mangrove, I told you about the importance of the mangrove during the Neolithic time, and there was actually there is a big part of the archaeological research in this part of the world, which is about the presence or not and the evolution of this specific environment. So being able to say mangrove was present or not by this time or in this site is a very great question of interest for all the archaeologist community working in this area. So how do I track the presence of the mangrove in my in my fishbone? So as I said, this environment are represented by numerous kind of fish, the small pelagic, as for example the sardines, the mullet, the scads, and also the juvenile of other one. So it could be the brims, it could be the grunts, it could be the emperor, and also by the presence, finally by the presence of smaller brackish species as the catfish, for example. And so this the presence of this environment will be track in the fish bones, especially in the 1 millimeter mesh, because you are sieving on the site. And so you can find here an example of this kind of material. So it's thousands and thousands of vertebrae of small fish, for example, the sardines. And you can find also a lot of molariform teeth, which are from this fish. And as you can see, this tiny fish could be very easy to target in a school, as for example in this picture, and also here it's after a high concentration of tiny fish, probably sardine, after strong winds that occurred 2 years ago in Oman. And so the photo was taken from a reef. From a cliff, sorry, and so you can see that all the black spots is thousands and thousands of tiny fish, and so it's very easy to target the entire school. So by identifying this tiny bones, I will be able to evaluate the presence of mangrove and lagoon at least. So. This is an overview of the result I get for the Neolithic. So it's a very generalistic result. And as you can see, some sites present very specialized pattern. For example, all the sites which are in green are very specific to the mangrove and lagoon exploitation, and others are more generalistic. So this one, I put the sardine here because it was a sampling from the it was a sampling from the material of from the 1 millimeter material. So we can see that, and we are going to see again about Ras al-Hamra that in this case it's more generalistic exploitation. So yeah, it's a specialized pattern in the exploitation of one environment, but you can see in that site that even if they are all the sites exploited lagoon and mangrove, different kind of species was target. For Masirah, it was the anchovies, and we can find the small specimen of parrotfish and also catfish. For Suwayh, it was mainly characterized with the presence of coastal shark and catfish. For Ruways, we are going to see again this result. And so what we can say about this general result is that the fisher from the Neolithic have had an extensive traditional and ecological knowledge of the different environment, the different kind of fish that they want to target. So yeah, and also we can see that what is visible at the first sight when we look at the result is that there is some regional adaptation of the fishing practice. And one other thing that we can say, the last one, is that the chronological evolution in the fishing practice are presented in the time. Voilà. So I would like to focus a little bit on the result of the shell midden of Ras al-Hamra 6. Sorry. Which are located in the area of the capital of Oman, so near Muscat, in the mangrove of Kurum, and yeah, it was excavated by an Italian team conducted by Lapo Marcucci, which takes the more recent excavation in 2010, I guess. And so the occupation period of the site was about the middle of the 6th millennium to the middle of the 5th millennium. And what we can see at the first glance, when you look at all the results of the bioarchaeological data, is that there is a high aquatic biodiversity which is present in this material. So for example, for the fish, 31 families were registered with 64 species. And we can also find a lot of expect from the fish. We can find also a lot of different taxa which came from the marine and aquatic environment. For example, my colleague Caroline Moon identified many families of gastropoda, many families of bivalva, but also cephalopod, scaphopods, crabs, polyplacophora. Italian colleagues, Delfino identified the turtle, and 2 families of turtle was identified. And also we can find 1 sort of dolphin and 3 different kind of 3 different family of terrestrial mammals. We are now working on the publication of synthesis of this bioarchaeological result. And yeah, so I present you in terms of diversity the importance of the aquatic biodiversity, but it's also the case when you look at the quantitative result. So obviously the molluscan are the more important taxa, which was marine taxa, which was exploited, but the fish came in second position. So for the fish, 2 kind of sieving was realized in this site. In one trench excavate especially for the bioarchaeological sampling, and so 2 sort of mesh was realized in the sieving. So the 3 millimeter. You can see the result of the 3 millimeter here, and I performed some sampling on the 1 millimeter here, and this one I did it totally in an exhaustive way, exhaustive way. So what we can see with this result is that the coastal pelagic fish are the most representative fish present in Ras al-Hamra 6 material. So there was a large majority of what we call jacks or trevally. You can find it in the blue. There was also the golden trevally, which was important. And in a second position, you can find the tuna family with the main presence of the kawa, which is little tuna. And after that, you can find in a secondary place the presence of different kind of tuna. There was also a lot of many other pelagic fish, which represent still a good proportion of the result, with the barracuda, for example. And in a minor position, you can find all the demersal fish, which was present which were represented a big biodiversity, represented the reef. all the fish reefs that you can find, but every time in a small quantity. So a small quantity of grouper, a small quantity of surgeonfish, etc., etc. And in the 1 millimeter, I identified a lot of tiny fish, which can come potentially from the mangrove and the estuary, with a large quantity of sardine in red, then the scad, then some sort of mackerel, some kind. Oh, it's not this. Okay, so the mackerel, some kind of tiny pelagic fish, the mullets, and at the last position, you can find the juvenile from the demersal fish. Voilà. So with this result, what can we say about the way the Neolithic population of Ras al-Hamra 6 exploited their their marine environment near the site? So obviously, there was a large-scale exploitation of coastal water, coastal open sea, and rocky area, with the large presence of the Jack Trevally and Kawa. So it was fish from a middle size, if I can say, with an average weight estimated to 3 to 5 kilo. And we can imagine several techniques which could be used for capture this fish. For example, we can imagine that fish could be fished with hook and line, but also with gill net. And for the reef, exploitation, we can also imagine the presence of some trap. For example, you can see on the picture an illustration of the local gargour, which is typical kind of trap that you can find in this area for exploited the reef. And yeah, so voilà. But the mangrove was also heavily exploited, as you can see on this, as I said to you with the previous result, and as you can see on this graphic, you can see that many species could be potentially exploited from the mangrove. And you can also see that on the right of the picture, that my colleague Caroline Moon also highlights Navy exploitation of the mangrove during all the time of occupation of Ras al-Hamra 6 with different kind of taxa. And you can see, if you look like the first graphic, that there is some gradient of exploitation, and you can see that at the end, all the different kind of environment present in the neighborhood of the site was exploited. Voilà. Yeah, one point about, I told you about how the near shore was exploited, but what about the mangrove? How do you fish into the mangrove? Is it easy or not? So it could be different kind of you can use different kind of strategies. So for example, you can go by foot in the mangrove, but you have to take care and you have to have a very good knowledge of the environment, because you have a very high risk of slugging. I'm not sure it's a correct term, but what I mean is yeah, you can easily go on some hole because the water is very brackish and the soil is very muddy, so you can disappear in a second in some kind of hole. So you need to know your environment for going into the mangrove. You can also evolve into a small boat, and it will be more easy to settle a kind of some net or some small trap. And by the end, when the lowest tide, you can also advance, walk a little bit in the water for throwing a cast net, as you see on the picture, or settle some kind of beach end net, which is a kind of net that two people, at least two people, use. For that, you need to surround the school of fish that you observe on the water. You need to find the school of the fish into the water, and you surround it with your colleagues, and you pull the net on the shore after that, and so you capture all the school of the tiny fish. Voilà. So Ras al-Hamra 6 is, as you see on the results, is the kind of site which presents a very diverse kind of exploitation. Many environment was exploited. But with this site, with the site of Ruways 1, I would like to present you the opposite, if I can say, an ultra specialized site. This site was excavated during all the time of my PhD because thanks to the project Nero Arabia, directed by Jean-François Berger from the University of Lyon and the CNRS, and so went to the site and participate to the excavation. And what is very funny about the site, it's that all the stratigraphy that you can see here is constituted about shell, obviously, because it's a big shell middle, but also inside the shells you find a lot of tiny vertebra and vertebra of tiny fish in all the stratigraphy, which cover several millennia, from the 7 millennia to the 4th millennia, if I'm not wrong. So how to excavate such a site? Because we couldn't excavate in an exhaustive way, so we have to add with my colleague a reflection about the bioarchaeological sampling. Different kind of taxa was present in the site. So there is a lot of seashell, with a big part very well preserved. The mammals were present in quantity, and mammals and turtle were present in a big quantity, but were highly fragmented, and there was billions of tiny vertebrae of fish. So we decided to proceed on the branch of the excavation to proceed by sampling 20 to 30 liters of sediment by stratigraphic unit, and to perform 3 kinds of sievings. So the one of 10 millimeters, the one of 2.6 millimeters, and the one to 1.5 millimeter. So in the first mesh, we get the lithics, the big seashell, and all the big material. The 2.6 mesh was able to collect all the fragmented seashells and the biggest fish, and all the material, all the fish. The main part of the fish material from the site was coming from the last and the smallest mesh. Voilà. And it was interesting because when we see the results in Ras al-Hamra, in Ruways 1 for the fish bones, we could potentially, we still need to work on that because the Neo Arabia is just finished, so now we need to compare all the results we get with all the specialists working on the bioarchaeology, but also on the paleoenvironment material. So when we look at the fish result, we see some change in the faunal spectrum. So what could be highlighted with this result is that a possible change of climate. When I start to studying this site, I identified a lot of small juvenile of fish in the most recent part of the excavation. And so at the beginning, I interpret this result as maybe it was the presence of a more accentuated accentuate a period of development of the mangrove in this area. And this could be a period of lagoon, and this one, the mangrove could appear. But when we compare with my colleague and the result from Jean-François, it appears that this period is also mostly considered as a less humid period and a more arid period. So the presence accentuated of this fish with all these teeth, and the result is the same when you remove the teeth from the faunal spectrum and you just keep the bones, but their bones are more heavy. The bone of this juvenile fish are more heavy than the tiny vertebra of this tiny fish. So what could happen in this result is that this period was more arid, and so the winds came more strong. And so all the fish, the vertebrae and the bones from that kind of fish, the sardines and the mullet, which are very light, disappear with the winds and only stay the biggest and the strongest bones on the site. It could be for now it's the hypothesis that we want to keep, and so we need to keep compare our results with my colleague to validate this hypothesis. And so what is interesting is for Ruways, we don't have only a result about the change of faunal spectrum, but we also have some taphonomical issue to keep in our mind. Voilà. What about the model of seasonality? Yeah. I told you about one of the big questions of my material was about one of the biggest questions of my research was about the seasonality of occupation of the site. Indeed, as I told you on the beginning of this presentation, according to the ethnographic report from the beginning of the 20th century, many archaeologists at the 80 and the 90 believes that the modern pattern of seasonality could be applied on the prehistoric time. Indeed, during the winter, the population could go on the coast and fish because by this time it's not so hot, and also there is a local phenomena in the water which is called upwelling. The upwelling is when all the nutrients from the bottom of the sea are going up to the surface of the sea, and because of the high presence of nutrients, all the fish are coming for eating. All the fish, like the sardine, are coming to the coast, in the coast, to eating the nutriment from the upwelling, all the plankton which is coming from the bottom of the sea. And because of the high presence of the sardines, the tuna and the biggest predator are coming to the coast. And so in the summer, the population could potentially go in the foothill to do the hunting and to do the breeding, and also to be spared from the heat. But this past decade, many studies from a different proxy show and demonstrate that the presence of this modern pattern of seasonality it is not applicable to the beginning of the Holocene population. It could be by isotope result, and also from the dating with the effect of reservoir, which shows that the population could eat marine resources all the years and not move into the inland. So that was a very interesting result. But what about the fish bone? What kind of information we can go from the fish bone? So obviously, and for the fishing practice. So for example, I mentioned the heat present in Oman, but also there is some kind of not some kind, but there is a monsoon season which could affect the fishing practice by sending a strong and heavy winds on the shore. So But when we are looking down the modern result about the activity, the monthly fishing activity for two kinds of governorate, so the one of Muscat and the one of Sharqiya, where are located my different kind of sites, we can see that Muscat area is not touched by the winds of the monsoon. The winds are not coming down in the Gulf. So it's not affected the fishing activity, but in the contrary, in the Sharqiya, there is some kind of pause during on the fishing activity. And what is interesting is that in Ruways, I don't have fishing, my fish bone does not demonstrate an exploitation of the open sea, but of the mangrove, which is less exposed to the wind. And also, the mangrove came with a different kind of seasonality, because if the coast and the shore is affected by the monsoon winds, and also it depending on the presence of the upwelling and the presence of the sardines and the predator, etc., different kind of feature came for the mangrove. And it's because the mangrove is affected by the reproduction and spawning seasons, which came mostly in the spring and in the summer. So that means that even in the area where even in the area where the monsoon was strong, and when the monsoon was strong, or when the upwelling were not coming, and the predator, the pelagic fish, are not so much present in the coast, the population can still go in the mangrove to have access to many fish resources. And also, what is interesting with the mangrove is that there is a lot of diversity, and so we can imagine an occupancy turnover, because of course there is a spawning season for fish. The spawning season can be spread in time, and with a turnover in the species schedule. So population can exploit the mangrove for a long time in the year. Voilà. So I guess I finished with the Middle Neolithic result, and now I would like to go in more recent area with some result of the generalistic result about the late Neolithic and the most recent period again. So between the Middle Neolithic and the late Neolithic, do I observe some change, for example? Yes. I observed some change. The most ancient, the most early sites are more characterized by the Karangids, the Jacks and Trevally family than the late Neolithic period, which is more characterized by the navy presence of the tuna family. And it's also an attitude which it's also a change which will be verified for the other period, for the Aphid period. So for the late Neolithic and the Aphid period, actually, it's probably led by the location of the site, and by the location of the site, and also because I have still few sites for each period. So I will need to conduct more expertise in more sites located in more area for really drawing a trend for the Neolithic change. But with the great transformation, so the moving to the end of the Neolithic and the beginning of the Aphid period, important change can be highlighted. So with the end of the Neolithic came the abandonment of shell middens and the reduced use of sea products for crafting. So we have to know that this time of transition, the end of the Neolithic and the beginning of the Aphid period, was considered by archaeologists like Serge Closiou and Mauricio Tosi as the great transformation period. Because this period came with a lot of social transformation and also technological. So if the the end of the Neolithic signify the end of Neolithic very characteristic feature like the shell midden, and the end of the utilization of sea products for crafting. As the opposite, during this new period, we can see the apparition of two kinds of technology, the metallurgy, which appear on the site, and especially about the hooks. The hooks was made from mother of pearl in the Neolithic, and in the Aphid period, they are made from copper. And it's also the period with the beginning of oasis agriculture, and also from the monumental architecture. And behind this kind of, behind all this development, we can observe in the population the development of different things, as the development of demography, the development of social organization, the development also on collaboration with some realization of work requiring many hours of labor and manpower, such as the construction of this Aphid tomb, as you can see on the left. So I would like to present the result of one site, for now the only one I study for the the Aphid period, and it's the site of Ras Al 6, which is not anymore a shell midden, but it's a village, and in this village we could distinguish four different phases of occupation, thanks to the difference and the change in the mud bricks. This excavation was conducted by Maurizio Catani and also Valentina Azzara at the end. So when we look at the result of Ras Al 6, what we can see is that there is a huge focus on the tuna family this time, and the Carangids family, which is this one, the second one, which was much more important in the Neolithic, is now very reduced in importance. And also we can see that when we look, can't see in the graph, but when we look at inside the result of the Scombrid's family, the Kawakawa, the little tunny, takes the main place. But with time, when the time is passing, the yellowfin tuna and the other tuna are taking more and more importance with the time. And they're taking more importance, but they also become bigger. We have to know, well, even if the size of the picture is not representative, but the Kawakawa is like a little species, if I can say. It can reach like 10, 30 kilo at the maximum, when the tuna, the real tuna from the Tunus genera, can become bigger and bigger and bigger. So on this side, I get a lot of Kawakawa from 10 kilo, and even sometimes for a bigger specimen. But for the Tunus family, they get much more bigger than the one I identified in the Neolithic site. For example, in Ras Al-Hamra 6, the tuna I identified was very small specimen and at least 10 kilo. Here, the middle size is more than 10 kilo, and not the biggest specimen. It's a mean, and it's a mean weight on the site. And also, I identified some specimen reaching the size of 60 kilo on the end of the period. So, with the time, we get a focus on bigger fish. And actually, it's not, it can lead to several conclusions. So, of course, the apparition and the using of copper hook could be an explanation, because it's more strong than the hook from the mother of pearl, but we can also imagine different kind of advance in the technology. For example, we can imagine the use of a soon boat, which could be more strong than the Sasha, which is a most fragile boat. And we can also imagine an increase of collaboration. Indeed, when you get a lot of big fish, you need to process the flesh. You need to process the fish. You're not collecting the big fish if you have a small population to feed. If you have the big fish and you focus on the specimen, that means that you have the population to feed behind you on the shore. I mean, so that's why you are going to capture this fish and this color of fish. And also, if you have the ability and the volunteer to capture this fish, that means that you can process the flesh, because obviously you are not eating the fish all the same day, maybe for a kind of ceremony or stuff like that. But let's imagine that it's fishing that could be practiced every day. So that means that you have the ability to process the fish and maybe to process some kind of store fish for later, for example, or for doing some exchange with the other population and stuff like that. So it could be behind the augmentation and the increase of the presence of the big tuna. We can imagine all this hypothesis behind. And why it could appear in ras salad. Why the development of the pelagic fishing could appear in ras salad? Well, because ras salad is kind of an idealistic place for fishing the pelagic fish. Indeed, ras salad is really at the point of different marine feature, like the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. It's just here, and it's at the crossline. There is also the local ras salad jet, which is very local and is going just near the coast in ras salad. And there is also a strong upwelling at this location. So all these features made the settlement of ras salad really a good position for the development of the pelagic fishing. Voilà. So if I'm for the Bronze Age, for the ras salad site, what about the seasonality of the fishing? Well, yeah, I just sorry. I look at the for asking this question for now. For now, just have with the bone and the identification tools that I perform on the site for now. I look at the presence, the actual presence of the tuna, of the different kind of species of tuna family nowadays in the modern data. Always from two kind of governorate, the one of the Batina and the one of longtail of Sharkia. And if the Eutinus affinis, the one is yellow, is the kawa. So as you can see, this is not a migratory species. It's present all the year on all the governorate in a kind of constant presence. Expect for a little spot here. But for the real tuna, the long-tailed tuna, which is the long-tailed tuna, and the yellowfin tuna, which is the bigger one, we can observe some seasonal pattern. I mean, this fish can be fished all the year on the both governorate, but they present a peak of presence in April and the beginning of summer, and also during the winter. So we can imagine that this fish could be fished, the pelagic fishing could be performed all the year with the high capture of the kawa, which is a majoritary fish on the site of ras salad. But for some period, like in the spring or in the summer, the fishing effort could be more focused on the real tuna, which bring more bigger specimen than the kawa. So I finished the presentation of my results. So I present you a lot of results. So now the question which is remaining, so do we know everything? because I already studied 1,000 and 1,000 of fish bones, so now there is nothing more to say. Actually, no, we still have a lot of different kind of questions to launch and to conduct in about this problematic. So, for example, the first one is to increase the number of sites and the number of area and the number of chronologies that I analyze to get a better idea of the characterization of each period, and also to understand better the transition between all these periods. So in blue, this is all the sites that I already analyzed, sorry, and in the future, I would conduct some studies, some analysis about these 3 new sites, which are covering a great period of chronology, which is great. And also, I didn't take the time to change correctly completely this graphic, but you can see that there is also 3 more sites added on the map, and the sites are more recent, more for the more recent periods than the Bronze Age. And also, I'm very excited because they are covering other parts of Oman that I didn't analyze and have a chance to investigate for now. So I'm very excited about studying and have a look on this material on the first, on the next month and the next year, because it will give me a very complete idea about all the fishing and the history of the fishing in this area. Of course, yeah, we still need to synthesize all the bioarchaeological data on all the sites that we study, because when I study the fish bone from the site, I'm very lucky because I have a lot of colleagues of different specialized bioarchaeological study colleagues which are studying the other material. So now we have a lot of data about all the bioarchaeological, all the subsistence strategy of the different sites. So we need to synthesize the bioarchaeological data. We are now conducting some synthesized analyze on the site of Ras al-Hamra 6, and we are going to do the same thing with the Neo-Arabia ANR project on 2 sites, especially the one of Ruways and the one of Masirah. Voilà. I also pay attention to the many fishing gears that we found on the archaeological site. So I didn't speak a lot about that, but on the site we can find a lot of net sinker, which could be pebble, very simply notch, or more prepared net sinker, as you can see on this one. And also we can find the other one type of gears, which is the hooks made from the seashell from the Neolithic and from the copper on the Bronze Age period. And so this kind of gears could be used in different ways. So especially the net sinker, it could be used as for the hook and line to weight and hook and line practice, or it could also be used to weight a trap, or it could be used for this kind of this is the bishen. It could be used for this kind of net, but also this one, but also the cast net. So it could be a very different use. And so since I identify the fish bone from the different kind of archaeological site, now I would like to pay attention to this net sinker, because all the archaeologists describe that different kind of net sinker exist in different size, and they change according to the area and according to the chronology. So I would like to come back once again with the help of Letition, of course, not alone, but I would like to come back in all the net sinkers that we have for this archaeological site, and to take measurement and to take photography to make a regional typology based on the morphological criteria and also on measurement criteria. I'm very excited about this project, and I hope that I could conduct this one during my next mission at the beginning of the next year. Also, as you see, I had a lot of interest about the tuna and the beginning of the pelagic fishing, which, alors, I'm not sure of the term of guiding fossil, which is fossil directeur en français, but yeah, you understand that the tuna is very interesting fish to study because it can track the evolution in the society when you are studying this. So I applied to different kind of projects to get some funding to perform a big study about the tuna in the area based on model reference on three species of tuna tuna family: the kawakawa, the little tuna, the long-tailed tuna, and the yellowfin tuna. And so I would like to develop osteometric model to really track the side change. I would like to develop some sclerochronological model for really being be able to predict the date of death. Sorry, to record the date of death of the fish from the archaeological site. I would like to perform isotope and also DNA to understand the change in the genetic diversity and also the change of the migration pattern, and so during the change of the migration pattern, and so the change in the time presence along the coast of this fish. Voilà, so it's a project that I really care about because it's very archaeological project. It's very based on an archaeological problematic, but it's also mixed with some historical ecology problematic, because behind to performing some kind of synthesis of all these fish bones, all the fishing of the tuna in a long period of time, I could have hopefully maybe observe some change in the pressure that we exert, that human fisher exerts on the population of tuna in this area. Voilà. And also, so you understand that I have a great interest with the mangrove, and nowadays the mangrove are less and less very residual in Oman. Fishing is prohibited, and also the government stopped to develop some program to replant them, because everybody in the world starts to understand the importance of the mangrove. So everybody try to understand them. So there is a real focus about the Omani mangrove right now. And in the archaeological challenge, I will love to have a better understanding of the associate fauna, and especially the fish. And I would like a better understanding about the frequentation of the fish, which species is present in which time, which species is spawning in which time in the year. And yeah, I would like to have a better idea of which kind of species are present in the ecosystem in Oman, because it's a very particular kind of mangrove, very specific, with only one kind of tree, and so we cannot make easily the comparison with other mangrove in the world. So we still don't know correctly the species of the fish associated with this environment. So we need to more understand that, so I could have a better understanding of my archaeological material after that. And also there is still a question about the transformation of this ecosystem and landscape, and some question about how the mangrove disappear in Oman, etc. And so for that, I would like to perform some survey field. For now, there is a real recent paper performed by Omani team about the fish diversity in the mangrove ecosystem in the Sultanate of Oman. And I would like to have more contact with this team and other people working in the mangrove diversity in Oman for better understanding this ecosystem. And also I would like to perform some actually I already tried and I'm just waiting the result, to try some DNA sedimentary on the shell midden sediment to have an idea, at least for seeing if the DNA is conserved, and also to maybe improve the quality of the identification I could proceed in this kind of environment. Voilà, so behind all this bioarchaeological project, I would like to valorize behind all this archaeological problematic and the projects that I have a real interest about how we can valorize the bioarchaeological data in conservation program, in management of the biodiversity. I'm deeply convinced, as many of my colleagues, that bioarchaeological data could be more valorized and can play a part, because we have formidable, amazing data on the biodiversity on the past and about all the change of the biodiversity during time, etc. And so, I would like to exchange more with some modern ecologists for sharing my data about the past biodiversity, and maybe it could be for a great help for them for knowing the past biodiversity and improve the taxonomic inventory, and maybe to have an idea about the more sustainable practice and the more resilient resource which exists in this territory, and also to have access to it will allow to the modern scientific to have an access to the past genetic diversity of the fish present in this area. Voilà. So to conclude, I'm doing ichthyoarchaeology, and ichthyoarchaeology is a very great combination of a multitude of discipline and knowledge, and which can and the objective behind that, behind all this kind of behind all this use of different discipline, is to better understand the sea, actually, and also to have a better understanding of the coastal society and what was the perception of the environment of this past society, and to interrogate ourselves about the changing perception of the environment of the society. And also it could my research could allow, I hope, to answer to a big question, which is where does environmental determinism end, and where the cultural choice begin. I really hope that with my research I could add some few elements to my colleague working on this kind of more generalistic question, and I hope that my result could help to define that. Many thanks for your attention. I hope I was not too quick in the speak, and that I was understandable. Thank you.